One of the things that we have to start seriously considering is what happens if all the guardrails go away and the Trump administration ends up being able to fully execute what they want to do. What if they go full out and are able to realize the fascist dreams that they want to take over? That's a real question that we need to consider, given the fact that we have seen that Republicans in the House and Senate are basically lockstep and rubber stamping everything that the Trump administration wants. One of the things that I would recommend is you checking out the article, So You've Been Invaded, a French Resistance Survival Guide for the US. This was written on a Substack by Lady Liberty as part of the American Pamphleteer Substack. And without going into the whole thing, there's a lot of things that the author mentions that I think is worth considering. So the scenario that the author describes is, what did the French do when overnight they found that their country was occupied by the Nazis? And those are things that we need to be thinking about as well in terms of what does a formal resistance or informal resistance look like? And one of the first things that they mention is that you have to accept the fact that the official government is not going to function in any meaningful way. Any sort of formal opposition, so these might be your elected officials, are likely going to lay over. And we've seen a little bit of that happen already, where Democrats in Congress have worked behind the scenes to make sure that there is backdoor agreements in place so that everything that the Republicans want get passed. You saw that in the recent budget crisis, where there was an outward show of a fight, but then when you hear Thomas Massie talk about it, he mentions that Republicans in the House and the House leadership of the Democrats had already agreed that this was going to move forward, and it was just a matter of creating the right optics to create the appearance of a fight. Where does that leave us? What that means is that you have to identify and align yourself with people who are still vocal and active and working in good faith to resist the fascist takeover. The next thing that the author mentions is keep an eye out on which institutions are going to get hollowed out first. And this is where it gets interesting. We're operating under the assumption that if ever this was to get escalated, there's no way the military or the police would turn against its own citizens. And that's a dangerous position to be in when we're talking about the military, police forces, media. All of those entities rely on paychecks from their corporate overlords. The police exist not to protect the citizens. The police exist to protect property. And you've seen the police reaction whenever Tesla locations are spontaneously catching fire. You've seen the police reaction when it's property that's being destroyed. They defend the property owners, not the citizens that are being oppressed. Similarly, the military has sworn an oath to the Constitution, and there are certainly some folks that will likely honor that oath if ever the orders were given to turn their sights on the citizens. How many would actually stand and fight on the behalf of the citizen? Because think about it. These folks have families, they need a paycheck, they need to pay the bills, and it wouldn't take a whole lot of pressure from the appropriate sources to change their minds and have them just follow orders. We've already seen the media do their best to bend over and lay down for this administration. So the idea that the press and law enforcement are going to be on our side is fantasy at best. So when you take those two things into consideration, the official government will fall in line. So you have unofficial channels that you need to identify. Major institutions like the media and the press, law enforcement and the military will likely fall in line with whatever regime takes over. That leaves the citizen as the last line of defense. And really, when you think about it, the citizens are also the first line of defense. An active citizenry is what's required for a healthy democracy. And what have we seen over the last 40 years? We've seen more and more people, more and more citizens become disengaged and fall in the trap that both sides are the same. It's the two sides of the same coin. It's the two horns of the same goat. All of that has been pushed out as a way to disengage the public. So when this sort of takeover happens, it becomes critical for the everyday citizen to make resistance their full-time job. And that's another key element that the author of that Substack makes, is that you need to do whatever you can to actively and passively gum up the works, whether that's sabotage, slowing down work rates, building underground networks, civil disobedience, any and all of that is on the table. So when you think about what is necessary to fight back against a fascist takeover, that's just scratching the surface of what they get into in that Substack. I would recommend that everybody check out the full article and use that as a little bit of a basis or foundation for what our game plan should be going forward. I'll include it in the show notes, and hopefully we can use that as a guide for some of the things that we should be doing going forward.